dear friend Stas is here with us. Welcome back, Stas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me
Another
start.
day in the madhouse.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start, Stas, with what has happened in the Khark Island. They call it Khark, but it's Khark with K at the end in Persian.
Okay, it's hard.
It's a Khark.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Khark Island. Yeah, and then what is your understanding of the attack? Because the United States somehow tried to say it was a, you know, they attacked the island by fighter jets. Later on, we've learned from the Iranian foreign minister the attack was done by HIMARS from UAE. And here is what the Iranian foreign minister said, Stas.
Mm-hmm. Last night, they have attacked Khark Island and Abu Musa Island with, the artillery rocket system, HIMARS as they call it, which is a low-range rockets, and they have done it from the soil of our neighbors. And this is crystal clear that now they are using the territory of our neighbors to attack us by these kind of, rockets. And this is absolutely unacceptable.
Which neighbors, sir?
Well, the last night attacks were tracked by our forces, and now it is clear that they are fired from UAE, from two locations in the UAE, from in Ras Al Khaimah, and from a location very close to the city of Dubai. And it is very, dangerous that they use highly populated areas to launch, rockets against us.
Yeah, well, what's so important? He mentioned two locations, Ras Al Khaimah, and the other one was a location close to Dubai, highly populated. What was the main goal of the attack on the island, and why did they decide to attack it from UAE, from that specific locations?
Honestly, I never actually I've seen on a map that there's an island there, but I never looked closely on that until all this started, which I'm going to have to go closely to the little tourist part, because I've been reading and listening to other people describe it. Apparently, there's a very ancient Christian monastery there. There are catacombs there. There was a couple cities there. So apparently, from a historical point of view, this was a very ancient location. I think it has an UNESCO heritage site on there. So, and the monastery is still active, so it's full of people. I think it's a women's monastery. So this is not just a small island in the middle of nowhere, because all they talk about is that it has oil fueling station. Oil fuel station. It's where the fuelers, the tankers, they come up and you pour the oil into them. I'm not sure why I'm having trouble communicating right now. One drink of coffee, and we start over. It's a It's a oil fueling station. So normally in these places, you may have a series of infrastructures that, for example, clean the oil. Like in Sakhalin, where I used to be a consultant at these places, an oil and gas consultant, you'll have a station that cleans the oil. So because when you get the oil out of the ground, you have all kinds of contaminants in there, sand, other chemicals, other minerals, different things, whatever comes out of the ground with it. You have to filter all that out, clean it out. Sometimes you even get dead animals. Amazingly, somehow they make their way in. Things like that have been found in pipelines. How the hell did a squirrel get in? Everybody got in there somehow. So you clean all that out, and then more modern versions is somewhere just a little offshore. You'll have a big spigot. I mean, literally looks like a giant spigot, and the tanker comes underneath it, and it just starts filling in whatever. Well, depending on the setup, if it's just one big tank or multiple tanks in that tanker, and it fills them up with oil, and then they leave, and the next one comes up, and so on. That way, they don't have to actually get close to the port or get close to the shoreline. That's the infrastructure there. Now there's a desalination plant there that's been hit. And there's apparently 30 villages. I don't know how they fit 30 villages. They're probably very, very small settlement points on that island from the people living there. They were dependent on that for fresh water. And then there's that site, and there's a couple military sites that were located around it to protect it. Well, the U.S. apparently has blown up the military sites. And while the ATACMS were firing, I've seen the videos of them firing somewhere near Dubai. They're not firing from the inside the city. They're in a desert environment right outside the city. And if you've been to Dubai, you know the city ends pretty quickly. You just get to the end of it, and then there's a sand dune. So they're firing somewhere from there, near the coast. But I doubt it was only ATACMS missiles, because each HIMARS only carries one ATACMS missile. MLRSs carry 2 ATACMS missiles. So, you know, there wouldn't be, I mean, it have to be a prolonged fire, because there's only a couple only a couple of HIMARS, which are wheeled vehicles to fire. So you'd have to go back, reload. I mean, it's a big missile. It's a big enough missile. It's pretty heavy. So you need a crane to reload it, and or change the block. Usually it's a launch box that they put on there, the missiles inside. It shoots out, then you take it off, put another one on there, drive out, shoot. So again, it's heavy enough. So it'd be slow. So more likely they did both. They did standoff air fire from fighters. Standoff means is they're not going to get anywhere too close to the Iranian airspace, because then they're going to get shot by any anti-air systems that supposedly don't exist anymore, but they keep firing. I don't know how they do this. You know, it's the ghost of the anti-air. They just keeps firing because if we believe Trump, no, Iran surrendered, I think, 3 times now. It surrendered to the Arabs, it surrendered to the Americans. I mean, you just said it surrendered again. And I don't think anybody's telling the Iranians they've surrendered. They don't seem to be getting the message that they've surrendered already, because they keep firing. Just like they don't get the message from Trump that everything's been destroyed. There's nothing left. But they keep firing. You know, Trump's, by the way, has already said that I don't understand why they haven't surrendered, or they haven't given up. Okay, you know, this is literally the idiocy we're dealing with. Well, they destroyed the military locations. They haven't touched the oil. And Trump said in this megalomaniacsly, I have not touched the oil because, you know, the oil facilities, but I could do that. You know, if you don't surrender, I'll do that. Well, the Iranians said, okay, you do that. We take out everybody else's oil facilities up and down the whole Gulf coast. And then what do you do? And they could do it. I don't know how, because everything's been destroyed, but apparently they still have somehow the ghost of the ballistic missile systems keep firing. It keeps landing because, you know, again, if you listen to Trump, there's nothing left in Iran, but they keep firing. So who do you believe? You believe your eyes when you see the missiles going up, or do you believe Trump? Of course you believe Trump. So they haven't destroyed it, because if Iran destroys everything on the other side, and by the way, apparently some of the firing has been coming also from Bahrain, and it's under a big question whether the king of Bahrain is actually still in Bahrain. There's been rumors he fled along with his family, because Bahrain is going up in smoke right now from the Shia revolt. So yeah, if that goes down, then oil's going to hit 200 for sure. Because at that point, everybody and their grandpa, no matter how stupid they are, going to realize, you know, you can open the straits tomorrow, but there's not going to be any oil. As it is, even if you open the straits tomorrow, there's going to be problems with oil getting out, fresh oil getting out. A lot of tankers have been destroyed or damaged. Some of them are in the way. They have to be dredged. And this all becomes a big issue. But yeah, so far, that's the situation on that island. Is this the only way Iran can get oil out? No. Iran actually has like 5 port locations that they can get out. This is just the biggest one. So if it's destroyed, it's a problem for Iran. Absolutely. It's a hit on the economy. Not that much oil is getting out anyways, even Iranian oil right now, because of all the things. Some is, which, by the way, is pissing the Americans off, because some Iranian oil is still getting out through their, amazingly, they've let their own oil out through their own blockade. I know, how could that be? But it would be a hit. It would be a hit. But the thing is, with the Americans, you got to understand why they told the Israelis to back the hell off from hitting the oil infrastructure. They want the oil infrastructure. just in case there's nuclear weapons underneath. That's why. No other reason. Yeah, the American reason for this war is mutating at incredible speeds. If you listen from day one to any one day, you'd never understand really. It's every day is a different reason why we've started this war with Iran. It's amazing to listen to this mutation because they don't know how to sell this war. They can't sell the war. There's no popular support for war. Even from day one, when normally people rally around the flag in America, there is no popular support for this war from day one. The population has been against it, so it's constantly changing. But we can tell they want the oil infrastructure. They want to control it at least. So that's why they don't want to destroy it. And the threat of Iran destroying up and down the coast, destroying a lot of what is American-owned oil infrastructure.
Stas, what we've learned from the Iranian media, it seems that the 60% of the oil reserve in this island was somehow evacuated. They moved it out from this island before the war started, 60%. And since the war started, they have been exporting the oil from this island. I don't know how much more do they have in that island. That's, I think, I'm so spectacle. I'm so doubtful about what do they have, what has remained in those, tankers in this island. And on the other hand, you've mentioned the attack coming from, one of the main arguments on the part of these Arab states that we are not part of the war, we are not participating in this war. But Iran recently has attacked, these refueling tankers, these airplane refueling tankers in Saudi Arabia, for example. In one attack, they have hit 5 of them, these airplanes. Is there any way that we can say that these countries have not been part of the war so far? Because from what we've seen, the attacks coming from these countries, the intelligence coming from these countries, they're part of the war. How can someone argue that they're not? Because before coming to this live, I was watching, Fareed Zakaria on CNN. He's saying the most stupid decision on the part of Iranians was to attack, the Arab states, these Arab. How can one come with such an argument that the attack is stupid when Iran knows the level of intelligence, the attacks, how these countries were used so far to attack Iran?
First of all, most of what Iran was attacking was not these countries, was attacking American bases there. A lot of the incoming ordnance was shot down over these cities by the Americans in the first days. So, there's this amazing thing called physics and gravity, and what goes up comes down, even if it comes down in many little pieces. And when you take something out in the air over a city, amazingly, it comes down over that city. So it's going to do damage. That's one. 2, the U.S. Military really didn't evacuate the troops the way it said. I mean, it supposedly dropped down from 56,000 to 26,000. So somewhere 30,000 American military disappeared. But turned out a lot of them just disappeared to the hotels. In fact, they were posting videos of the bases getting hit out of hotels. And one of them starts panicking and he's flipping his camera around. And you see this really luxurious room. It's like, yeah, that does not look like something that the military gets. And they're not bad housing, what they get overall, especially over there. But they don't get like a luxury hotel room. So these guys were being housed in these hotel rooms to be outside the base. And some of those areas and some of these hotels, they were convening staffs, military staff. And the Iranians were hitting those hotels to get at those staffs. You basically turn it a hotel, you rent it and turn it into a barracks or a command post. And got that. Some of these governments, there was subterfuge going on in that, for example, the Saudis who said our airspace is neutral, but really were allowing U.S. fighters to fly through, fighter bombers, F-35s, F-18s. And that came up when somebody either on purpose or accidentally didn't switch out their transponder. And the whole flight route got logged worldwide. So that, whoops, moment. But the Saudis, for what I've heard from very, very good sources, the Saudis have told the Americans there to go bugger themselves. They're not going to involve themselves in this war. And in fact, we saw Lindsey Graham, light in the loafers, screaming and hollering at the Saudis that, why do we protect you? But you don't protect them. That's the whole friggin' point. Why do we protect you? You have to get in there now. You have to get in a fight, blah, 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 blah. The usual, I think I'm stoned and I'm getting lots of cha-ching out of every missile firing, Lindsey Graham. So, in that moment, and the Saudis are at least smart enough to go, no, we're not getting involved in this fight. Because they get involved in the fight, they may not have a country when it's over. From several directions, including the Yemenis, who the Saudis took several provinces from, which, by the way, have lots of oil in them, and they're Shia sitting on top of that. Never mind, most of their oil locations, they're Shia populated. Their economy would be destroyed for a very long time. Their water desalination plants would be destroyed, so they couldn't feed water to most of their population. And who knows, the Jordanians might grow a spine and remember that the Hashemites were the caretakers of Mecca and Medina, not House of Saud. And they may decide to, while we're at it, let's go take that back too. So the Saudis very quickly may find themselves out of a country. So they were smart enough to go, nah, we're going to stay neutral. And what I've heard is they told the Americans, you're on your own. Don't look for help. Don't look for us to evacuate your bases. You're on your own. The other thing I learned, and as somebody that spent, I was an armor officer and I spent lots of time in the infantry. So this was shocking to me when I learned this. Those bases, American bases there, they don't have bunkers. They don't have bunkers. There's no place to hide. They were so on the first thing, they were so convinced that this would be 3-4 days, just like before. It's a showcase, death by 1,000 cuts, even though the Iranians said, we're going to just whack everything. If no matter how big the hit you bring on us, we're just going off on everything. But they didn't believe it. And two, they were so sure of the anti-air systems. Well, even if the anti-air system, and they did do a lot of damage in destroying what was coming in with the anti-air system, though not nearly enough, obviously, at first. But this is going on and going on and going on. And even if you have the best anti-air system in the world, you will run out of ordnance sooner or later. We're on day 17. Almost day 17, where I'm located. So we've got half an hour and it'll be day 17. So much for 4 days. They ran out of ordnance a long time ago. And Iran is now just working them over. There were 5 Stratos tankers burning that got hit yesterday. Now they're just working over. And from what I've heard, they're looking at possibly evacuating all personnel off a lot of these bases. They have no defenses. And so far, the Iranians have not gone after the troops in any kind of meaningful way. They're destroying the equipment and everything else. Tomorrow, they decided to finally go after the American troops. Mass casualties. They got no place to hide. They have no bunkers. As an infantryman, I thought, how do you hell not dig a bunker? Especially if you're under possible threat. How do you not dig a bunker? They never dug any bunkers. They don't have bunkers. Which is, again, I don't know how many times I can say it. To me, it's just like, the sun is square. It's a cube. It's not a sphere. It's that level of what? But apparently, yeah. So they are screwed. They're screwed beyond all reality at this point. Their own making. I mean, you've got to be dumber than a box of rocks with just one rock in it and still be that dumb to not build bunkers. But apparently they didn't. So they don't know what to do. And Iran, if tomorrow Iran ups the ante, there's several ways Iran can up the ante. Obviously, it could start really going after American troops. Seriously going after American troops on these bases. And they're going to have, there's already a lot more casualties than what the U.S. is admitting to. I'd probably multiply their figures by a 9 or 10 to get closer to reality. But it could be a hell of a lot more than that. Many times more than that. That's one. Two, Iran can take out the infrastructure all up and down, the oil infrastructure. Iran, by the way, has given American companies notice, get the hell out, get your people out, because the U.S. hit Iranian industries. And they said, that's it. We're going to take out every American factory, any kind of manufacturing plant up and down the Persian Gulf. They're going. So they gave them a warning, fair warning, get your people out, because now you're the target. We'll see if they do it or not. And then if it ever goes really to desalination war, Iran can easily wipe most of the population out on the Persian side, on the southern Persian, on the Arab side of the Persian Gulf, because countries like Bahrain, Qatar, they're 100% reliant on the water from desalination. Saudi Arabia is like 70, 80% reliant. The Israelis are said to be 75. I talked to a former Israeli the other day who moved to Russia. He's not. He's actually a Safaric Jew. He hates Israel. Moved out of there, and he was telling me it's not 75. 75%. They have enough water to feed the people. They don't have enough water for agriculture, and that's all going to agriculture. Of course, that would destroy a very large sector in Israeli economy if that happened. So it's do you really want to go down this road? And I mean, let's be frank, the Persian Gulf, the Arab states are artificial entities. When I went to Dubai, good Lord, I guess it was 2013. I was there I was a director, regional director in Halliburton for supply chain over Eurasia. And we had a big staff meeting there. So I went there, part of a big staff meeting. And when I flew there, I want to go see, I like historic places. I like ancient sites. So I was like, I'm going to go look at historic Dubai. And I can't find anything on historic Dubai, period. Nothing. Nothing anywhere written. I'm walking around there. I asked around. They're like, historic Dubai was a mud brick fort in a tiny village. There is no historic Dubai. That's all Dubai was. It was a tiny little port and one little warlord's, mud brick fortress, if you can call it that. Keep. That's it. So this whole city of Dubai is an artificial entity built out of the desert, just like every one of those cities. Bahrain was a very tiny population. Qatar was a very tiny population. So the Arab population that's native to there grew very quickly, which it wouldn't have. Plus all these people they've imported to serve them grew very quickly. They can't feed them themselves. They have to import food, which, by the way, is going to be a very big issue very soon. It's day 17. There aren't exactly too many planes and ships coming in full of produce. So they're going to be running out of produce, and starvation is going to start kicking in. If this continues for another month, for example, or 2 months, there's going to be massive humanitarian crisis. And if you take out the desalination plant, a person in a desert, 1 day without water, man, that's it. And that kind of heat, the heat's is coming up right now. The heat there gets 55 degrees Celsius. 50, 55, in the shade it'll be 50. Without water, you're not going to survive more than a day, maybe day and a half. And if the electricity is knocked down, there's no air conditioning, you're in that heat. Oh, that's a massive humanitarian catastrophe, like something we've probably never seen before yet on that scale that quickly. This isn't starvation in Africa where a person can starve for weeks before he dies. Depending on what he's taking in. This is, 2 days with no water. Bye-bye 100 million people. That level. It's mind-boggling. But yeah, that's a situation that America has unleashed on everybody. Congratulations, Mr. Trump, for the peace president, peace of the grave, the graveyard. What he's created with the situation he and Netanyahu are creating is a massive human catastrophe.
Actually, nobody knows where is Netanyahu right now because he's not in his country and he's just hiding somewhere. And many people are arguing that he's.
I love that video. On the one hand, all his fingers are even. There's no little finger. On the other hand, he's got 6 fingers. He's pointing with one. He's got 4 fingers here in the thumb. It's like, yeah.
It's unbelievable what's going on with the case of Netanyahu. I don't know if he's hiding. He's somehow, someone hit him by missile, someone with drone, and let's see what would happen with his case. But Stas, when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump, when the war started, he said that we are the biggest, we are the most powerful military on earth. We can do whatever we want to do. And today yesterday he was talking about somehow Peking or somehow China may join us to open up the Strait of Hormuz. How, how can someone go that far? Because it's so stupid, the suggestion. Why would China do that? And what is in it for China or for anybody? I would argue, even for Europeans. It doesn't seem that they want to get involved so far. They're doing everything to help the United States. They're not talking about it. They're doing everything. But what is your understanding of the Strait of Hormuz and the way that Donald Trump is trying, to say if he couldn't open up the strait, it says nobody helped us. We're not going to do it for these countries to benefit from it. After all, in my opinion, your understanding, you're taking that.
Well, how dare the Iranians do what they said they were going to do? Nobody does what they say. Well, not in Washington, anyways. Not in Europe. Not in the EU. They don't do what they say. They do the opposite half the time. And the Iranians actually did what they said. They said they were going to close the strait. Yeah, it's not the Chinese. He mistook. It's the Antarcticans. They're sending a penguin brigade to unleash all holy hell on the Iranians. I mean, these people. Well, first of all, Trump. Whatever pops in his mind, it doesn't take long to go from here to here, and it just pours out, and there's no filter in between. I don't think there's really, should I say this? No, there's no such filter. It's a free flow. It's just absolute free flow, open highway, no toll booths anywhere on the interstate. It's only getting worse if you haven't noticed, and he's panicking, so he's just blurting out whatever the hell comes into his mind. The moment that thought forms, or maybe even before, but you could say, I'm just being mean, but I mean, literally, just look at how he's talking and look what he's saying. It's not getting better. It's not getting more rational. It's going quite the opposite direction. So now they're planning on sending Marines in. It's a Marine Expeditionary Unit for grabbing beaches. So here's the point. What are they going to grab? Well, they're like, they're going to grab Khark Island. Well, first of all, they would have to pass through the Straits of Hormuz with their equipment. Well, they go over ground. Well, okay, so you're going to ship assault ships, these very, very large ships that can carry tanks on them, over ground. That's going to be fun to watch. So they'll be there, a month, 3 months? No, they plus if you grab that island, how do you feed them? First of all, just that part. How do you feed them? You have to go all the way across the Persian Gulf from port to port to feed them, to get them ordnance. If you drop 2,500 men, a brigade, and then the island is right near Iran, so that'd become a shooting gallery for drones. Day in and day out, there'd be drones hunting them down, and casualties will mount at insane speeds. So, okay. Well, then they're going to grab the Straits of Hormuz and keep them open. Okay. Well, first of all, the U.S. Trump keeps talking about we're going to escort ships. Just not right now. And then the French come out, we're going to send our 8 destroyers, the whole French fleet. It hasn't surrendered yet. Just wait, give it a few minutes. They're going to go down and they're going to escort ships in a defensive mode. So you're going to put yourself in a war zone, moving ships that Iran says they cannot pass. And you expect not to get attacked. Right. Just to understand, right around that tip, the lanes for the ships have been dredged. It's a zone that's 2 miles or 3.2 kilometers wide. Most of those tankers, well, all of the modern tankers, they can't go outside of it. They'll beach themselves. They're too big. Only smaller ships with lower lower keel, well, not lower keels, but less of a keel can go around that area. So I don't know if American destroyers or frigates could go around outside that zone. They may have a problem with the beaching. It's not that deep of an area. It's been dredged for the big tankers. So even if the destroyers can go out of that corridor, any ship they're escorting can't. What we've seen the Ukrainians, British, did to a Russian tanker in the Aegean Sea, was attack it with a swarm of FPV drones with RPG rounds attached to it. And it worked. Plus, yeah, an oil tanker doesn't have any defenses. It didn't have anybody with assault rifles on it to shoot at these FPV drones, which is hard enough as it is. Now imagine 200 Iranian kids sitting up in those mountains overlooking the coastline under some tree, and each one of them is launching drone after drone, 200 drones at a time going down there. That's not that hard to imagine. You can't find them all on these mountains sitting under some cliff or sitting under some tree with a visor and popping drones down there. And you got a swarm of drones, whatever defenses you gotta have are gonna run out of ammunition pretty quick, and more likely at least a few will get through. And you got RPG rounds blowing up here and there all over some destroyers. Sooner or later, it'll be too damaged to function. You can swarm it like that. It's low tech compared to what that destroyer costs. But it's doable, very easily doable, and you can do that for every other ship. You no longer need land-to-ship missiles, land-to-sea missiles. You no longer need bombers. You no longer need a lot of equipment. Now imagine they land the Marines on that coast. To their back is the straits or the sea. To their front is a strip of coastland and then a high mountain range with a bunch of, never mind dug-in Iranian army, well, possibly a bunch of teenagers popping drones down there and chasing them all over the place. And you get a slaughter. You get a slaughter on TV for the American public to watch as this Marine Expeditionary Unit gets wiped out. You didn't escalate to get out. You escalated to dig yourself even further in. But that's what looks like they may be doing. I didn't think that they would do that. But they may actually be looking to do that. It's mind-boggling. I put out a video. I went through all the different locations they could have gone through. Figured the 82nd Airborne, they may have pushed the Azerbaijanis into a war with Iran and then go through there. That's a possible. But it's a very long logistics line. But still, it's a sane. It's at least somewhat sane. I won't say it's sane. But this is one of the most insane places you could drop it. Now they're bringing up an expeditionary unit. That's designed as an expeditionary regiment. It's designed for grabbing beaches. It's not designed for going far inland. They grab the beachhead, and then the army starts coming in to expand on it. It's suicide. I mean, this is suicide. Even if they don't get wiped out on the beach, they can't fight their way in. It's not going to stop drones that can go 30, 40 kilometers, especially if you put repeater antennas up there, up in the mountains. They get great range. Those drones on a good battery pack can actually go about 30 kilometers. That covers, even from the mountains, that'll cover those lanes of approach. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to push the boundary back far enough that they can't reach with the drones. That means you're going to wind up going into the mountains. U.S. ain't got the kind of manpower to do that, considering the losses they're going to be taking. It's mission creep. It's stupid mission creep. It's panic mode. We don't know what to do. The Iranians won't stop firing, and we told them they've surrendered to us 5 times, and we've defeated them 20 times, but they still won't stop firing. For some reason, nobody tells the Iranians that they've lost the war. And Trump doesn't know how to get off the hook. He's on there good and tight, right behind the gill, and he doesn't know how to get out. So the only thing they can think of is let's expand the war. And Hexa, wants to be a crusader, evangelical crusader right up to Tehran. I guess he's looking at it as a new Jerusalem. The people from that side are insane. They want the big war. The U.S. public doesn't want the big war. But to conquer, if they want to conquer Iran, they need to draft about 3 to 4, maybe 5 million men under arms. That would be a revolution, a civil war in the U.S. instantly.
What do we know about the capabilities of, because Israelis were talking about their reservists, they're talking about 450,000 soldiers. And these are merely, mostly not that much trained to be on the battlefield, I would assume. And how about the United States? How do you see the capability? You mentioned 4 to 5 million. What do they have right now in terms of the military on the ground to put troops on the ground in Iran?
Well, first of all, the U.S. the U.S. Army plus Marines combined is about 550,000. That's including the National Guard and reserves. And you'd be surprised how many of those National Guard really aren't fit for duty. I've seen that before. People are just, they should have been let out of the Guard or the reserves. We're just writing it out to get their pensions or better pension. Guys that were medically undeployable. And when their units got called up and they would go through the medical procedure, like bone spurs, can't lift weight because of spinal injuries. Well, why are you still in the military? Okay, because it's you scratch my back, I scratch your back. We're never going to get deployed type mentality, and you just sit out another 2 years and get your pension instead of getting something smaller because you had to leave earlier. So that's one point. Heavy equipment. I mean, there's a lot of equipment on location in Saudi Arabia. That's true. The U.S. forward positioned several divisions worth of equipment. But you always go back to logistics. And that's positioned for what it's there already. For example, if Russia wanted to go to Ukraine and you could just say, let's mobilize 10 million men and we'll just walk right over. True, you could do that. But then comes the question, what do you arm them with? Do you have 10 million rifles at least? How much ammunition we got? Do you have food for 10 million men that you have to? And on the whole logistics side, yeah, you can grab a lot of people together. How do you arm them, equip them, and get them to where you need it, train them, and feed them? And continue to support them. I mean, that's a whole lot more different and difficult than just grabbing a bunch of people together. And that's if you're, somebody like Russia and Ukraine, where Russia's fighting on its own doorstep. And it's not a very long drive from Moscow, or better yet, Voronezh or Rostov to Donetsk or Lugansk, and then to the front lines. You're talking a couple 100 kilometers. Here, if you can even gather those kinds of people together in the U.S., and then you have to move them and their equipment and their provisions across to literally the other side of the world, across desert terrain, and gather enough equipment to do something like that, it can be done. Can the U.S. economy support it at this point? No. Will the U.S. population support it? Hell no. When those soccer moms and those woke psychos and the MAGA that think they're all great and this will all be over just with an air campaign suddenly get a notice that, hey, your little boys and girls, they're going to go off, they're going to be the first one on the block to go to a foreign land, meet foreign people, and kill them. Oh, and probably get killed themselves. Interesting how fast all that dissipates. And all of a sudden it's, well, we didn't sign up for this. Well, now you did. So that would be, I guarantee you, that would be just revolts all over the country. And that would be the end of the government. If not totally the end of Donald Trump's presidency, it may be in the end of the government. It's just not that population. And they could do this in World War II because the U.S. got attacked. Now, did they know that the attack was coming? I think they did. A lot of circumstantial evidence points to it, including the fact that when the two ambassadors from Japan went to Roosevelt to his office to declare, they weren't taken in as they were supposed to be. They were made to sit for 2 hours, during which time the attack went through, so the U.S. could say we didn't know we were being attacked. There was no declaration of war, blah blah. And then they said, yeah, we just woken the dragon because they outplayed, Roosevelt outplayed the Japanese in that case. But the point is the majority of the American public felt we were attacked. We were surprise attacked by those dastardly evil Japanese. Never mind how we set them up and that, but that's a whole different issue. But then the public perception was we were attacked, wrongly attacked, maybe. For the simple public perception of that, yes. There's no such thing. U.S. wasn't attacked. Israel wasn't attacked. They chose to attack. So the whole moral high ground is gone. You're in the swamp of how do I sell this war? And we've seen this nonstop. Trump and his team are squirming every which way. They can't sell this war. And now you're going to tell the people you can't sell this war to, we're going to take your boys and girls and we're going to send them off into a meat grinder on the other side of the world for Israel. Because that's what a majority are looking at it. Whether it's for Israel or not for Israel's interest is irrelevant. Because the majority are going to be looking for Israel. So not only are we going to have to send our kids off to fight, but we're going to have to send our kids off to fight for a foreign country that attacked first. No, they're not going to go for it. As for Israel, sure, Israel can get 450,000 people together. I'm sure they can. And you're very right. The majority of their reservist army, which is almost the vast majority of reservists, is not that well trained. We saw that in Gaza. We saw the performances in Gaza, especially at the very beginning. They were not well trained. I mean, I remember one instance. Even though the war in Ukraine had been going on for 2 years, we've been dropping grenades and RPG rounds on each other from drones for 2 years or a year and a half at that point. And you see in Gaza this company, or actually, I guess it was a platoon of Israelis. They stopped to eat lunch. They parked their vehicles, and they're all sitting in a big circle. And the drone comes around and drops a mine right down the middle of them, but blasts off, and a bunch are injured. A couple got killed. So they're like, seriously? You haven't seen what's going on in Ukraine, so you learn nothing. And we saw the level of skill was pretty low. So yeah, sure, the Israelis can get all these guys together. Skill level's questionable. Can they continue feeding them? Can they continue keeping them in the field? That's one. But two, there's another issue. That's 450,000, a country of about 9 million, maybe even less, because a lot of people have fled and are continuing to bleed out of the country. That's a very large chunk of not just of your population, but of your working population. That's whole factories or whole computer software development offices without people. That's everybody's been mobilized. So your economy just goes nose down, and it may go nose down for a very long time. So there's that point too that one must consider is how much of damage can your economy handle, especially if you start taking people out of key roles. So they could do that. But then again, for Israel, there's another problem. Concentrating too many people in too small of a space allows the enemy to level casualty rates much higher than it would be normal. So, if you have a very congested area, you've just shoved troops and troops in, the enemy can conduct a lot more high-end attacks on you, where otherwise there wouldn't be that many congestions. Plus, too many troops in any one area, the congestion, you get traffic jams, you have problems communicating, you have problems of movement. So you have to have just about the right, you have to figure out what the right amount of troops are and keep that troops, not too many, not too few. It's an art. It's military science is an art, in all truth. It's an art that's constantly evolving. So do you need 450,000 troops? Where do you house them? How do you use them? There's a whole lot of questions. And logistics is what wins or loses wars, realistically speaking. It's the not pretty nuts and bolts in the rear that nobody sees. Most people don't want it. It doesn't make Hollywood movies. It's not, the truck driver that's delivering ammo is not the hero that's charging up the hill. But if he doesn't deliver that ammo, no hero is going to be charging up that hill. And that's the reality of it. And the same thing for Israel. So, there's a lot of questions, and then there's time scales. If the U.S. is going to would have to do a draft, and just even for 1 million men, what I've been told about selective service. I was registered selective service. I went and served. Selective service, if you don't know what that is all boys at 17 or at 18 have to register. That's your future draft database, right? From what I've been told, it is in such bad condition right now. It would take up to 6 months to straighten it out, and it's a couple more months to start getting recruits in. That's one. But even if it was an ultimately perfect machine that was working just ideally, you start the draft, you're still looking at 1.5 to 2 months to get people together, get them ready, and get them shipped. You're looking several months before you can do anything, even if you have all the equipment you need, because you got to get them trained. You got to get them in, you got to get them processed, you got to get them trained, you got to then ship them. That all takes time. You're not going to ship massive amounts of people on airplanes. You could to a degree, but most of the equipment and everything else would still go on by slow boat. That's just the way it is. You're not going to. You can only ship. There's only so many planes that the U.S. military has. C-30 was it C-13s? I think is the number. Gotta go with this up. Yeah. That can carry the Star Lifters. That can carry the two Abrams tanks. But that's There's not that many of them. So
They
the
call
point
it
is,
KC-135.
yeah, well, you can use the C-130s, but they're old, and I mean, most of those planes are much older than I am. Some are from the 1960s. That they could use them to carry troops, but that's also limited. In the end, if you're doing any kind of mass deployment overseas, you do it by ship. So that's even more time. So how long is this war going to be? Because it's going to take you a long time just to get the kind of troops in to do any kind of invasion of Iran physically by land. So I mean, there's all these issues, and it's not just something you just decide on the spur of the moment to do. It's a massive undertaking. Never mind, again, you'd probably have a revolution on your hands if you declared the draft right now in the U.S. So no, could they throw troops in? Yeah, I guess they could, and it looks like they are going to. Is this going to be a disaster? Absolutely, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a massive disaster. It's going to be the opposite of what Trump wants. But you know, I guess that's the advice he's getting, or maybe it's a decision he's making.
Yeah. You remember when they were talking about these aircraft carriers, how they can use them? Just a new Chinese satellite imagery shows that the USS Abraham Lincoln has fled away from Iran's coast, and it's now operating near Salalah in Oman, behind the coastal mountain range. And the carrier right now is over 1,100 kilometers away from Iran. It's because before it was so close to Iran, 350 kilometers. Right now is more than 1,000 kilometers away from, far from the Iranian coast. What is the strategy of using, and at the same time you see that Donald Trump is somehow begging France, Germany, France and the United Kingdom and China to join him in the Strait of Hormuz. He's not that, he doesn't want to be, close to the Strait of Hormuz, but he's trying to, bring other countries to the region to help him. How do you understand the way that the United States is using these aircraft carriers when it comes to the Gerald R. Ford or Abraham Lincoln? Because both of them, one is more than 1,000 kilometers away from the Iranian coast. The other one, Gerald R. Ford, is somehow close to the, in the southern part of the Red Sea, close to the Saudi Arabia.
It's right within Yemeni's strike zone. But which was the Yemenis have taken out one oil tanker that was heading up the Red Sea from I think it was from the Saudi southern ports. It's supposed to be heading, I think, to either Europe or to Israel, but they set it on ablaze. The problem. Okay, first of all, the problem and the limiting factor in any aircraft carrier battle is the flight distance of the planes. The F-35 is singularly probably the worst plane of the last 50 years, if not longer. It was meant to be the plane that could do everything, and it could do everything very badly. So it's a non-specialized that can do any role. Well, the problem is if you don't specialize in something, it means you do everything badly. There's nothing you do very, very well, except cost a lot of money, lots and lots of money. So, I was talking with Larry Johnson, and he's got a lot more insider information on the F-35s. And there was I'm sorry, not Larry Johnson, Colonel Wilkerson, and that he was shocked at some of the things he heard. With Abrams tanks, on average, you're looking rule of thumb. For every hour of exploitation, you're going to have 2 to 3 hours of maintenance, which is a lot if you think about it. With the F-35, they're talking about for every hour of exploitation, up to 20 hours of maintenance, which is insane if you think of it. It is absolutely insane. Even if it's half of that, 10 hours, even for 5 hours, it's insane. So, if it goes out on a 5-hour mission, there and back, you got to figure for the next day it's not going anywhere to run all the maintenance. Plus the maintenance on there, very large chunks of the maintenance, Lockheed Martin locked into a contract. I don't know how much they had to bribe the generals that signed this beauty. There are large parts like the avionics and the propulsion system that military mechanics are not allowed to touch by contract. They cannot do anything to it. You have to have Lockheed Martin mechanics. So there's a civilian team on each of these aircraft carriers and all these bases with F-35s that cost $500-600 an hour. 24 hours a day they're there to do the maintenance on those parts of the planes that are off limits by contract to the U.S. military or any other military buys them. Yeah, it's insane. You think about it, it's absolutely insane. Well, the problem too with the F-35 is its maximum bingo range. That's bingo fuel, at which point they have to return, or they're going to get, or they're going to crash. Is about 500 kilometers. So they take off at 500 kilometers, they have to get refueled in the air. Otherwise, they got to turn around and go back, or they're done. They're not going to make it. Or they got to find some land base or something else to land on. So they're already limited in scope because that's additionally, you have to have air tankers up there to refuel them. If they're 1,000 kilometers out, that's 2 refuelings one way, 2 refuelings back. Otherwise they'll crash. Well, actually, I'm sorry. It's 1 refueling that way, 1 refueling back. Otherwise they'll crash. If they go to a full maximum range of 2,000 kilometers to be fully out of range of Iran's Fatah-1 hypersonic glide vehicles. Well, the missile is a Fatah-1. It's a ballistic missile. And then I don't remember what the actual glide vehicle is called. But it's got a 2,000 kilometer range. Iran, I don't think it's used those yet. They've used other stuff. They've used a couple hypersonics, but they haven't really used the hypersonics. They start using the hypersonics plus the Chinese radar system. They'll zero in even on that Lincoln where it's hiding right now. They can reach out and touch 2,000 kilometer range. So Lincoln will have to go in further out. Lincoln was pretty close in, and it got a swarm of ballistic missiles coming in on it. That's what they ran. That's what they did. They ran. They ran out of range. But the problem is that they're so far out of range, they're not really combat capable even right now, let alone if they get closer. Now, the escort ships around the Lincoln, they could fire Tomahawks. But from what I've been told, they've been told to stand down with the Tomahawks. There's not enough Tomahawks left. And the problem for them is those tubes, the way they're set up, once they fire those Tomahawks, they can't reload them. They have to go back to port. So again, 1 of 2 ports they can go: 3 days to Diego Garcia or to India, 4 days. Now that India's switched sides to be slavishly kissing the American and Israeli backside. But either way, even if it goes to somewhere like Diego Garcia, so 3 days there, 3 days back, you shoot off the missiles and then you repeat all over. So you've got, it's not exactly a serious combat system that can be fired once a week. You're looking at this wasn't well thought through. I mean, obviously, logistics side, military logistics side, the combat systems in place. This wasn't thought through. This was supposed to end in 4 days. Okay, it's now 17 days. 17th day now officially. It's 3 minutes after midnight. So yeah, they don't know what to do. They're not set up for a long haul war, but the Iranians are. And it looks like the Iranians already said, we could do this right up to the elections. We could do this for 6 months. We can absorb the fatalities. We can keep going. Can you? The U.S. can't. Pop some more aircraft carriers in there, as many as you want. George Bush Sr. is steaming that way too. Apparently, what are they going to do? They're going to sit outside of range. Otherwise, they're going to invite a lot of nasty surprises. So, okay, so you're going to have a lot of aircraft carriers and their escorts sitting around in the Indian Ocean. They all cost money, every day.
Stas, when it comes to the military power of the Arab states, so far, recently we've been witnessing that they're arguing that they have hit some drones in Saudi Arabia, in UAE. They're talking about hitting drones. But when it comes to the support, if they decide to support the United States and Israel militarily, how capable are they? The military, the air power, what do they have to bring to the table?
Well, let's remember the Gulf states, Arab states, the most powerful one is Saudi Arabia, obviously. What happened when the Saudis went up against the Houthis? Even with all the mercs that they were bringing in from Colombia, what happened to the Saudis when they went up against the Houthis? Why did they finally end that conflict? Because the Houthis were some very good engineers. It's not just, they're not just some hillman herdsmen. They've got very well-trained engineers. They took old Russian ballistic Tochka-U missiles that have now been phased out. They're still used in Ukraine. And they modified them up, got them even better, and they started popping them into Saudi oil fields. Whoops. They even hit Riyadh Airport a couple times. And the Patriots were intercepting them. So the Saudis figured out the damage they're going to be taking is a lot worse than the goals that they were. It was not worth the goals that they were seeking by installing their puppet in Yemen, which was a civil war at its time. So again, what's their capability? This is against the Yemenis. True, the Yemenis are being supplied by Iran, but they didn't have Iran's best systems or anything close to it. They didn't have the amount of ammunition Iran has. So at this point, what are these bases going to do? They're going to get destroyed. I mean, sure, they will do damage to Iran, and depending on what they're hit. If they go after desalination plants, Iran goes after their desalination plants. That's a die-off of half their population. So hopefully they're not that stupid. They go after Iran's oil inventory or oil facilities. Iran responds to their oil facilities. That's the end of these Gulf states. They're a one-trick pony. Saudi Arabia has been trying to diversify, but the majority of the Saudi income is still off of oil and gas. You can't keep the people satisfied, and a lot of Saudis are very poor. Actually, they're not the sheikdom. The average man is not a rich man, and let alone any of these other one-trick. There are really one-trick ponies like Qatar or Bahrain or UAE. It gets to be a very big problem. The oil and gas facilities are destroyed. UAE is also, of course, Dubai and all the other sheikdoms, and they have finance, all that. But it's only there because the oil is in the others, and the money's flowing in those areas. None of that, they all die off too. So, I mean, are they willing to risk basically the extinction of their countries? I don't know. Maybe they're that stupid. I don't think they are. I think they figured out the U.S. isn't going to be there to protect them. The U.S. has already showed it. Going any further against Iran is suicide. And they, if nothing else, they want to protect their power and their money. And if they go any further, I mean, you get all kinds of people. You get idiots in power too. But I think the majority are thinking very, very hard and going, U.S. isn't going to be there to have our back. It's already shown us it's not going to be there to have. It'll have Israel's back while it can, but it definitely doesn't have our back. Do we really need this? And like I said, from what I've been told, very good sources, the Saudis have told the Americans, go bugger yourself. We're not helping you. That's it. You're on your own, buddy. So I think, if Saudi Arabia's made that choice, sure, they could pressure some of these small sheikdoms into it. Well, okay, there won't be these little sheikdoms because Iran will respond overwhelmingly to them. Hopefully, they're all going to be smart about it. I mean, look, day two, Vladimir Vladimirovich, his number one job was playing camp counselor, talking all these sheikdoms off the ledge. Don't jump into the war, you're going to die. Your country's going to die. And they all, starting with Saudi Arabia, they were all calling him, because the Americans aren't there for you. I mean, look, just to compare. Close friend of mine, Pate Abaladze, his brother-in-law is Kaladze, who is the mayor of Tbilisi. He and his family were in Dubai for his birthday. They got stuck there, obviously. They are now back in Georgia. They got evacuated by Georgian and Russian and Russia. Russia helped the Georgians get him out and get him back into Georgia, along with other Georgian citizens. Russian citizens have been evacuated out. Americans have been dropped. I got a video on there with on my phone, and I put it on one of my updates where journalists were talking about the State Department put out a number to call in case you're stuck in the Gulf when hostilities started. And we called this number, and you hear the recording. Don't count on the U.S. government to get you out. You're on your own. Do what you can. You know, there's what, maybe 100,000, 200,000 Americans there. I'm talking not just in Saudi Arabia, but up and down between people living in Dubai and doing business in Dubai to oil field workers and engineers and professors and others that are working in these economies. They've been dropped. That's it. Thank you very much. Pay your taxes. It's tax season, and survive as best you can.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
If I was a U.S. citizen sitting there right now, I think I'd be a little bit pissed off. You know, just as a civilian, you just drop, survive as you can. You know, in the middle of that desert and war. So,
and just imagine every time you watch Pete Hegseth coming out, we're winning and we're getting, they're getting. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It is. What's a U.S. citizenship worth nowadays? You know, Pete Hegseth, if anybody harms an American, we're going to come after you. Well, except Garcia, what's his name?
Diego Garcia.
Yeah, not Diego Garcia. Garcia Lira. I'm butchering his name. The American journalist, Peruvian American journalist, who was murdered by the Ukrainians. Oh, nobody gives a damn about him because he was telling the truth. Yeah, except for people like that and other people like that, we don't care about those. Those aren't real Americans for us. Oh, and the workers that we just dropped.
You're talking about Gonzalo Lira.
Gonzalo Lira, thank you. I'm horrible with names. Yeah, Gonzalo Lira. You know, I watched more than a few of his reports from Kharkiv. I mean, he was risking his life taking one. At least he had the good sense to get his wife and kid out of Ukraine before all this went sour for him. But yeah, so that, you know, how many people are on the murder, death, kill list that are American citizens, which, by the way, is registered in Langley, Virginia, right beside the CIA. You know, American workers that we couldn't be bothered with to get out of Saudi Arabia and other places. Oh, well, unless they're rich enough to get their own private plane. Oh, well, survive the best you can. Pay your taxes. It's tax season. Pay your taxes. And survive the best you can. So, yeah, I mean, this is the hypocrisy of the government that's in Washington, or the regime that's in Washington.
Yeah. Exactly.
But look, there's 2,000 American troops in Iraq on 3 bases. They're under fire constantly. They're besieged. They get artillery. They
their embassy, Stas. Their embassy in Iraq is enormous.
Oh, I know.
And they just hit everything in Iraq.
It's enormous, but when it runs out of fuel, food, and ammunition, it's still enormous. It's just undefendable. Or when it runs out of food, and the militias are, you know, all over the place, and those 2 posts up north are getting hit too. There's no, I haven't seen a rescue convoy coming. Have you?
No.
You know, I don't know what they're going to do when their ammunition runs out, when their food and water runs out. You know, talk about screwed, left out to hang. Maybe they're hoping that the war will be over before they need to do that. I mean, that's great that they have that kind of hope, but, you know, hope dies last. That's the old Russian saying. But you got to be prepared to get those people out before they run out of food and everything else, and you're proven wrong. You know, 4 days, now it's 17. You know, how much food provisions do they have left? Another 2 weeks, maybe? This lasts 2 months. What do? Will their ammunition last that long? You know, there's a lot of questions there. 2,000 guys that you just dropped out there to hang. And and the green sector, you're right, there's also families. So, you know, I don't know what they're going to do.
Most of these people have nothing to do with what Donald Trump is doing. Yeah. They're just good people. They're just, you know, someone who is just serving the country, doesn't have anything to do with what Donald Trump and Netanyahu has. They have in their mind. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Now imagine the scene if one of these bases or the green zone gets overrun.
Yeah.
they're left out to hang. Well, they weren't evacuated out, because if they were evacuated out, everybody would know something's about to hit. So they were just left out there to hang. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I know what they should do, but whether or not, I was talking with Ritter 10 days ago. He's like, no, they'll get an armored convoy in there with air cover to get them out. That's been 10 days, 11 days. I don't know if they're going to do it. I mean, they got an armored convoy. They need to get it together fast. And I guess they could come in through Syria, through the puppet regime, El Jelani's puppet regime, to go from that direction. But you still have to get it together. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm pretty sure that the Kurds in the American base up in Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan, I'm pretty sure the Kurds aren't exactly going to be thrilled to allow the Americans out. They may slaughter them, because the Kurds have been betrayed by Trump, and El Jelani and the Turks were allowed to massacre the Kurds in Syria and Kurdistan. So that's next door, these guys' cousins and nephews and whatever, brothers, sisters. So they're probably out for blood right now. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, this is a disaster. I don't know how much they thought through all of this. This is a total friggin' disaster.
Yeah. Thank you, Stas, for being with us today.
Always a pleasure.
As always.
Maybe one day we'll talk about rainbows and butterflies and, mom's pie, but yeah, it's something cheerier than these topics.
Exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah.